Trailer for sale or rent. No? Is that the wrong feel for that song? Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Good morning, Spiritual Life Center. Welcome to the SLC Sunday Experience. We're so glad to see you all, and your soul is welcome here. You are in the right place at the right time.
Right place, right time, just where you were meant to be, whether you're live streaming or you're here with us in person. We're so grateful and so thankful that you chose to spend the day here with us at Spiritual Life Center. And now we're going to sing about it. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. In the right place, I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. Oh my soul is welcome here. Oh my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. Please join me in turning around and saying good morning to those that are live streaming. You're in the right place at the right time. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. Oh my soul is welcome here. Oh my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome. Oh my soul is welcome. Oh my soul is welcome. Yes it is. My soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome. I'm getting the message. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. My soul is welcome here. Come on, everybody, put your hands together. You know that your soul is welcome here. Yes, it is. My soul is welcome here. My soul is welcome here. My soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here.
Good morning, Reverend James.
Good morning, Reverend Deborah. Good to see you this morning. And your soul, as everyone else's, is welcome here.
And we greet you in the name of all that is good, all that is holy, and all that is sacred, and in the warm and loving energy of this mission-centric community, Spiritual Life Center. If this is your very first time with us today, we especially want to welcome you because we know that you are not here by accident. We are all here by
Divine appointment.
And our divine appointment also includes our mission to love, serve, and remember. And please consider your divine appointment for silencing those little electronic devices that you carry around.
And as we silence those devices, we create a clearing to have a direct contact with this presence that is not anywhere but right where we are. And as we get all the other things out of the way and connect to the purity of our being, we remember that it's divine and perfect expression of God that we're connecting with. And all the qualities of this presence. There may be a peace that passes all understanding, maybe a divine love that is beyond words. It's the health, the healing, the vitality, and the vigor, imagination, and all that's good and perfect. We remember these are the qualities that we are expressing and can express in and as our life. As we make these things the activity of our awareness, then we realize the truth that liberates us and sets us free. We set aside all the illusions of separation from this presence that is always there for us. And we bring into that circle all those who may need a healing or upliftment on whatever level that may be, because we know that Spirit is always on the field. We declare this presence to be good and very good for ourselves and in our world. Amen.
So, Wednesday this week is our Unity World Day of Prayer, the annual service that our chaplains sponsor. So they will all be here. This year it is the Courage to Heal. And as I said, the chaplains will be here, and the music will be by Michael Dean Rogers. So salad is at 6, and the program is at 7.
Okay.
Oh, guess what? Faith in Action. Did you see the table out there?
Yes.
Okay, this is time for the participants to sign up. You can sign up, all of the sign-ups are online. So you can go home and you can sign up in the comfort of your home with your little snacks by you, or you can, you need to be powered when you're running a computer. Or we do have some iPads out in the courtyard, so if you feel electronically challenged and want us to walk you through it, just come see us after the service and we'll get you signed up.
And speaking of activities coming up, I want to remind you that Reverend Jim and Reverend Lisa Lee are coming to Sacramento this next weekend to bring us Traveling at the Speed of Love. And that's going to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And there's information in your bulletin that indicates there's one program that's Friday and Saturday. That's an independent one from the one Sunday, but you can go to all three, but all the details are there. And I believe we have a video to show you regarding that. So here they are.
Hello, my name is Jim Lee, and joining me is my wife, Lisa Lee. And together, we have been teaching for over 40 years in the spiritual evolutionary movement. Guys, we work with people like Marianne Williamson, Deepak Chopra, and Michael Beckwith, just to name a few.
This is an exciting time to be alive on the planet right now. At the end of every era, there was always a group of people that came together to hold space for what is next for humanity. At our workshop, Traveling at the Speed of Love, we will take a hands-on experiential approach to exploring exactly what it is to pioneer a new consciousness. And in turn, we will be infusing ourselves with a renewed creativity and sense of purpose.
Well, this is what's next for you. This is what's next for the Unity movement. In this workshop, Traveling at the Speed of Love, we are incorporating cosmology from Brian Swill, mutual awakening practices, Patricia L. Berry, shifting of paradigm, Jeff Carrera, and of course, Charles Fillmore's metaphysics. All this combined is transformative in its nature. Now you've heard this expression, God is good all the time, and all the time, God is good. Well, it's time to not only think about it, have faith in it, but to live it and experience it every day. This workshop is designed to make that happen in your life. Hope to see you there, traveling at the speed of love. God bless you.
God bless. All right.
And now I'd like to introduce Rachel Lyman. She has a special announcement for us.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Rachel.
Haven't been here for a while, so I'm so happy to be here today. And I'm here on behalf of the Sikh community in West Sacramento at the Gurdwara, and that's a term that means a Sikh place of worship. They're going to have their second annual community-wide open house. Last year, we had over 500 souls show up. It was an amazing evening. And this week, Reverend James, at the event, Reverend James will be one of the guest speakers as well. So SLC is part of their 20th anniversary. This is one of their events, and it honors SLC's founding ministers, Reverend Faith and Michael Moran's commitment to interfaith connection. So there's an online registration required. It's a free event, but we were trying to be respectful of the Sikhs and let them know how many people are going to show up. Although every weekend they have between 2,000 and 2,500 congregants that go to temple. So they're used to throwing another potato in the pot. So why are they doing this? Well, in the news, very often, and too often, we hear of Sikhs with turbans on the streets being killed or attacked. So they want you to come and find out who they are. To love. The Sikhs love everybody, and they promote love between people. To serve. They are one of the most generous communities you'll ever find. My husband, Rev. David, and I went to the 2015 Parliament of World Religions, and for 4 days, the Sikhs fed over 10,000 people every day a vegetarian lunch for free. So that's just part of who they are. If you go to temple at any time, you'll always get fed, which is really nice. So to remember, they put a turban on their head, at least the men do, and women wear scarves and so forth, to remind themselves of their commitment to God and their faith community. So, love, serve, and remember. Gee, does that sound familiar?
I think I've heard that before.
Yeah. They're very much attuned to what we do here at Spiritual Life Center. So come meet the Sikhs. It's an amazing event. Bring your neighbors, friends, family. All ages are welcome. I'll be in the courtyard to, if you want to sign up, I'll be glad to register you or give you more information. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rachel. And coming up upon us, Light the World Gala. It is that time again. It's going to be taking place on Friday, November the 16th at the Unitarian Universalist Society. So we invite you just to save the date. It's going to be taking place, like I said, on the 16th at 6 p.m. And you'll learn a little bit more about sponsorship in the weeks to come, starting next Sunday. And like I said, I was mentioning that I was been on some of the meetings of the planners of it. A lot of good stuff is going on, and you don't want to miss it. And more will be revealed along the way. But anyway, save the date. We're going to have a great time. Also, just a reminder, we had someone share about the Transformational Shift survey that we're taking of the members of our community and friends of our community. Someone told me one time that, that which you can measure, you can always improve. And so we're measuring kind of where we are in our mission-centric ministry model process so we can begin to see how we're moving and progressing throughout this whole experience. So you have an opportunity to go online, and it's right on our front page of our website, and they take you right to the place to sign up and do the survey. And also, if you want to do it here, you can also just go over the building right next door, and we have one of our board members who will help you do that as well.
I'd like to introduce some very special people in our community. Would our ambassadors and chaplains please stand? Our ambassadors wear the rainbow ribbons, and they are here to guide you and show you how to get connected in all the various places around SLC. And our chaplains are here to hold us in confidential prayer during our human journey of joy as well as challenge. Then they wear the white stoles. They will be in the sanctuary and in the courtyard after the service.
So if you're here for the very first time, we ask you to raise your hand. In a few moments, we're going to have a special gift for you, and also have you give you an opportunity to fill out a welcome card that we'll hand out to you that you can drop in the offertory basket right after the service, or bring it to the welcome table. So if anyone's here for the first time, any first-timers here this morning, just kind of raise your hand. And first-timers, first-timers, first-timers. No first-timers, first-timers. Second-timers, second-timers, second-timers. Going first, second, third. Well, and as I always like to say, that if you're here today and you're better than you were yesterday, you're a newcomer, you're a new person. So greet all your new people and say, you look marvelous, and you are marvelous.
You to stay standing and join us in singing our group song, All Good by Ricky Byers Beckwith. Please join us in singing. All good, holy, holy. All good, holy, holy. All in my mind, in my heart, in my soul. Let me know all is good. Holy, holy. All love, all love, all love. Holy, holy. All love, all in my mind. Let me know is love, holy, holy, all one. We are all one. All in my mind, in my heart, in my soul. Let me know all is one. Holy, holy, all God. All God. All in my mind, in my heart, in my soul. Let me know all is God. Holy, holy, all good. All good. Oh, it's all good. All in my mind, in my heart, in my soul. Let me know all is good. Holy, holy, all in my mind, all in my mind, in my heart, in my soul. Let me know all is good. Holy, holy. Please be seated.
Yes, give yourselves a hand. Yes. You sound beautiful. So I love that line, James, that you said, what we can measure, we can improve if we choose to. So as a community, we've been looking at our shadow side a little bit. It's a little bit of a therapy that we've been doing, and we've been speaking it together here on Sundays. So let's do that at this point. Please have compassion for us when we are being not enough, distrusting, grieving, blaming, powerless, and fearful, because this is who we have come here to be. Inspired, in integrity, joy-filled, compassionate, unstoppable, generous, and transformational. Amen. So let's enfold all those words into our vision statement as we speak it together. Spiritual Life Center is a loving, vibrant family that welcomes home all people and accepts everyone, no exceptions, weaving ancient spiritual traditions with emerging wisdom. We cultivate a spiritual deepening with the divine, each other, and our planet.
Please join us in singing our meditation chant.
Joy and peace in my heart. Always I feel joy and peace in my mind. joy and peace in my heart. Always I feel joy and peace in my mind. God within revealed joy and peace in my life. I am healed. Joy and peace, joy and peace in my heart. Always I feel joy and peace in my mind. God within reveal joy and peace in my life. I am healed. I am healed. I am healed. I am healed.
As we settle into this time of quiet, breathe naturally. And simply be aware of how you relax with each breath. Breathe into the back of your heart. Melt into your seat. Allow your vision to become soft and cloudy. And allow your consciousness to gently drift to the center of your chest and greet your heart. There's a small light just behind your heart. It's like a pilot light. And as you breathe naturally, the light expands and contracts. It is a living presence. And let us see now if we can make direct contact with this divine presence. Your light is an instrument of peace. Feel peace. See peace. Taste peace. Hear peace. Smell peace. Become peace. And your white light expands. Your white light is an instrument of love. Feel love. See love. Taste love. Hear love. Smell love. Become love. And your white light expands. Your white light is an instrument of harmony. Feel harmony. See harmony. Taste harmony. Hear harmony. Smell harmony. Become harmony. And your white light expands. Your white light is an instrument of balance. Feel balance. See balance. Taste balance. Hear balance. Smell balance. become balance. And your white light expands. Your white light is an instrument of knowing. Feel knowing. See knowing. Taste knowing. Hear knowing. Smell knowing. Become knowing. Your white light expands. Your white light is an instrument of compassion. Feel compassion. See compassion. Taste compassion. Hear compassion. Smell compassion. Become compassion. The white light expands and you are filled, immersed, overflowing. You know that you are light and light is you. There is never a lack of light because light is who you are. And in this awareness, take a moment to celebrate and dance within your light being in the silence. Now take a gentle breath and allow yourself to become aware of your body and your surroundings. And take in this final blessing. Oh, my beloved, by expanding your heart light to the instruments of peace, love, harmony, balance, knowing, and compassion, you are consoled as well as consoler. Remember this always.
Where do I go with all these feelings, all these faces and open doors, when everyone seems so serene and I just feel so insecure? And where do I go when all the pieces of my heart lay on the floor? You say, come into the light, why don't you? Come into the light, why don't you? Come on now, come into the light. Where do I go with all these memories, all these bags filled up with shame? And how should I feel when you call me an angel? dress me in a crown of gold. And what should I do when the tears of sorrow just won't stay inside these eyes? You say, come into the light, why don't you? Come into the light, why don't you? Come on now, come into the light. What should I do when a gentle-handed reaches out to take my own? How should I feel when the tears of joy, they just won't stay inside these eyes? And what will I do when I start to love you, really trust and know you're there? You'd say you'll be in the light where I am. You'll be in the light where I am. Come on now, come into the light. You'll be in the light where I am. You'll be in the light where I am. Come on now, come into the light. Come into the light. Come into the light.
Thank you.
Come into the light. I think we're in the light now. Thank you, John. Thank you, Ann. If someone had asked me what is the bottom line for being part of a spiritual journey or going to a spiritual community, what is it all about? You know, oftentimes we come maybe because we're going through a challenge in life, and you know, there's some series of events that leads us to a place. Maybe we need a healing. Maybe there's a challenge in relationships. Maybe we're looking for peace of mind, looking for purpose. But I realize that really the journey is about remembering and realizing and reconnecting to our oneness with God. And of course, when we do that, there are benefits, there are byproducts. Upliftment happens, healings may happen. A change and transformation in our life begins to happen. And even in the midst of difficulties, in the midst of challenges, the whole adventure, the whole journey is about knowing our oneness with this presence. There's a psalm written by the psalmist in Psalm 139, and they talk about this idea that no matter where we are, there's this presence. And it says, "Whither shall I go from thy spirit? If I make my bed in heaven," which is really oneness with God, God is there. "If I make my bed in hell," which means separate from God, lo, God is there also. And the psalmist going to write that the night shineth as the day, and the darkness and the light are both the same to God. So the spiritual journey is about realizing no matter what we're going through, no matter what we're growing through, that Spirit is on the field, God is on the field, because there is no spot where God is not. But of course, sometimes I get asked, what is God? And I have to answer, I have no idea. I don't really know. Because I've always believed and have shared before that, God is beyond human understanding. That whenever we begin to put words to something that's beyond our human construct, then we've already limited it to the vocabulary that we've used. And this presence is way beyond what we can express. It's way beyond what we can humanly understand. But we can begin to understand the qualities, begin to incorporate those qualities. And we're talking about the qualities of divine love and compassion, the qualities of wisdom and intelligence and health and healing and vitality and vigor and peace that passes all human understanding. So we've been using this St. Francis prayer, Make Me an Instrument, as a theme to gather up, to incorporate some of those qualities that will give us an idea of what God is in our life. Because it's reminding us that we're here to be an instrument, a vessel, so to speak, of God's magnificence, and to celebrate God in and as our own life. And if we do that, our consciousness expands, and every time our consciousness expands, every time we become aware of who and what we really are, every time there's a deep potential within us that is released, we become more and never less than our true self. And we are celebrating God's life through us. So this St. Francis prayer does a very rare thing, I believe. It attempts to reverse almost all the ordinary tendencies we find in human nature. And as Lauren talks about, he said, it gives us that blueprint for making our life a blessing for everyone. In other words, I believe it's saying in so many words that, God, show me who I am, and I don't care how magnificent it is. Show me who I am. I don't care how wonderful it is. I don't care how beautiful it is. Just show me who I am so I can be what I've intended to be as an expression of you. So today we're examining the line in that St. Francis prayer, grant that I so not much seek to be consoled as to console. And Eknath Warren in his book, Love Never Fails, when he talks about that line, he said, it's not talking about pity or self-pity at all, but to have compassion for others, for the troubles, the challenges, and the misfortunes that they may be experienced. It is the same quality as the psalmist wrote that God has. Because the psalmist wrote that God, the Lord, the great law of life, is good to all. And that compassion is over all that has been created. So whenever we offer a sense of compassion to another, is a perfect remedy oftentimes to nipping any kind of our own depression in the bud, as well as spreading consolation to those that we may be consoling. I had a very good friend who was in a very dark place, and he didn't know what to do. And the only thing that he could think of was maybe just start going back to this place where they had meetings, fellowship meetings. And when we went there, he was able to run into someone that he knew that had some challenges far greater than his own. And he had been through much experience himself, and he was able to offer some advice, some suggestions, some hope to that person. And he shared that with that individual, and he said that it did help the individual that he was talking to, but to his surprise, what the thing that helped more than anything else was him. It helped him get out of himself. He had his cloud lifted from him. He was lifted up. And I recall when I was in ministerial school, I had one of my housemates from Austria, and I couldn't remember his name earlier. His name was Fritz, and he was great. He's smart, brilliant guy. And I just tell you about, in this house, they had a whole bunch of guys in there, and it's very interesting to see a bunch of spiritual people not get along with each other. All kinds of crazy arguments happening, and somebody would flap down a daily word and open it up to forgiveness, and somebody would write on there, it's not about forgiveness, okay? And so it was very interesting to see spiritual people go through their spiritual experiences in this human plane. But one of the housemates was Fritz, and he was very ill, and he obviously didn't have anybody, close to him. They were, thousands and thousands of miles away, And so I ended up kind of being like his nurse and, making him some soup and, chicken broth and all that kind of stuff, and by going to the pharmacy and picking up stuff that he needed to get well. And somebody said that, well, that's really very good what you did. But then I realized that, I was going through my own existential experience in ministerial school at the time, because you got to come face to face with a lot of your own stuff. And I was saying, I don't think I need to be here. I need to get on out of here. But interestingly, I was able to get through that because I was able to do something for him, and it did something for me, and I didn't even know what that was going to be when I first started doing it. And it reminds me that as we look at that prayer, that whatever we give out in consciousness stays with us. And I oftentimes, make reference to that statement from Imelda Shanklin, who wrote that book, What Are You? And she says, whatever you want, you never want for another person what you would not want to see happen in your own life, or something to that effect. But conversely, whatever you want in your life, you want to make sure that other people around you get it. Even those people that don't deserve it. I had someone come to me and, they were thinking that some other person was getting all this good stuff coming in their life. And they were saying, why is that happening to her? What is she doing with him? I don't understand what he sees in her. There must be some kind of luck or something going on. I just don't understand that. And as I thought about that statement from Imelda Shanklin, at least the converse of that, we recognize that we cannot have a blessing. We cannot have the benefits of that kind of positive energy unless we're willing to give it ourselves. So when we see that individual who seems to be getting stuff that they do not deserve, just speak it out and say, I wish you get all the good in your life. Even if you have to strain, make it come out. Because whatever we give out, we begin to keep that. We keep it. In the same way, we must have compassion for everyone. Even the people that we don't seem to think are on our side, or we don't understand, we don't get along with, our so-called foes. I remember watching a documentary, or a story on TV a while back, and it was about a number of young people who had died at the hands of police, and they showed pictures of their family and pictures of them, and they went through all of how the injustice took place, and you can feel a great deal of compassion for them and their families. And I could sense that maybe they could be someone that I know, or someone that was in my own family. That compassion was there, and kind of brought back memories when I had a nephew who was killed in some violence, many years ago, and I was looking back and I was asking myself, how did I feel when that happened to my own family member? Of course, my emotions ran through the gamut. I had deep sorrow, I had deep compassion, obviously, for him and my brother, who was his father, and understandable that anybody who witnessed something like this, that they would have that same kind of compassion. But I also began to ask a deeper question to myself. Do we have the same kind of feelings when we hear about other tragedies that may be taking place halfway across the world, where people are killed, maybe they're terrorist acts? Do we have the same feeling when we read about what's going on thousand miles away and we say, stop the violence? Do we rise up? Do we have that same kind of compassion? I think that question is important if we really want to build a structure for compassion on the very planet in which we live. In order for it to be instruments of that Spirit of God that we're coded and encoded to be, so that we can be in alignment with what that psalmist says when it states that God's compassion is all over the earth, and God has made all of this to be compassionate. Because this presence has no boundary. Just like our soul, our true self has no boundary. Our surface mind, our superficial mind knows boundaries, but God, our soul, does not know any boundary on the planet. And so with this realization, we understand that we're all interconnected on a very deep level, and what affects one individual affects all of us. Which is the reason Dr. King said something to the effect that whatever affects one directly affects everyone indirectly. And I cannot be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. And you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. This is the interrelatedness and the interrelated structure of reality. So if we're to have the ability to console and have compassion on this level, we must use our imagination as a skillful way to walk in the shoes of another person. Because there's only one life, one power, one presence. There's not a lot of really different lives, although it appears that way to our limited understanding. There's only one life, and that's the life of God, revealing itself through a whole lot of different ways, but there's only one thing going on. And so we can stop and see someone else's perception by imagining ourselves walking in their shoes. And no longer do we react to another person's point of view, which is very easy to do nowadays. You know, there's an I'm right, you're wrong sort of thing. I get caught up in that every once in a while, and I say, bad minister, stop that, stop that. Where we sometime in our minds want to get to get back to someone else, because we know they're wrong. But we have to imagine why they said what they said, why they think like they think. And we'll begin to see that individual is either often scared or scarred in their own life, and that's why they act that way. You know, His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, was speaking to one of his monks. And he was recounting the harrowing tales of oppression under the Chinese government that they were going through. And he asked one of the monks, was he ever afraid? Was he ever afraid? Because there was a lot of stuff going on, a lot of horrendous things taking place. If you've ever read I've seen some of the movies about it. And the monk said, you know, I was afraid once. And the Dalai Lama said, you were afraid for your life just one time? And all of that was going on? And the monk said, no, I was not afraid for my life. I was afraid that I would lose my compassion for the Chinese people. Of course, that's compassion at the highest level. Dalai Lama said that those who choose the compassion shall be the radicals of our age. And this is the kind of thing we need in the world we're living in now. And we need that compassion to usher in a whole new paradigm in our planet. And I think to help us move from that, we must move from just merely tolerating what we consider other people, as I like to say. You know, we can say we're tolerating for a little bit, but we want to move to accepting and then move to the next level of respecting, and then appreciation, then outright celebration of everyone, no matter how different they may be, no matter how weird they may be, no matter how strange they may be. We can celebrate that because I think Spirit just brings all of this into our life just to have a sense of humor. How well can you see that we're really all one in some way, shape, or form? And that if we can see something in another individual, that means that some way it probably is in us. So we probably need to take a look at ourselves. It's always come back to us. I don't know what to think about that. I always want to point out there. But it begins on an individual level. Because the world is nothing more than a reflection of our collective awareness, our collective consciousness. And if we do not do it as an individual, we cannot expect any change in our outer world. I think to develop our individual consolation and compassionate consciousness, we no longer want to reduce others to a category. I was thinking about a friend. He said he had gone to Bangladesh, and he said he had gotten into one of the rickshaws, which is a kind of a bicycle that has 2 or 3 seats in it, and he was being pulled by that bicycle. And if you ever go to developing countries, you see that there are a lot of people who really are always beggars and bringing stuff, and he had this mentality that it was a bother to him. And so this small girl just jumped in the rickshaw and was trying to sell him some candy. And of course, that's the way that she survived, by selling candy to people who were there, the tourists. And that's the way that she was able to, make it from day to day. And of course, he didn't want to be bothered with this. He didn't want to be buying any candy. And at first, he wanted to tell her he didn't want to buy anything. That, he saw her as some child begging. But then he said he had a revelation. He decided suddenly in that moment not to see her as an other, but rather decided to play with her. And they started doing patty cake. However they do that, patty cake. bakers. Well, how does that go? I don't know. I've seen it happen before. Okay. And after they'd done that for a while, she simply took the candy that she had in her bag and placed it in his lap, and then she went away, happy. And said that what he had given her was not money. What he had given her was recognition, affirmation, which was probably much more important to her at that time. And apparently, based upon her actions, she felt that way. You know, when I was I don't know, I thought this was maybe in junior high school, they had these summer programs, you know, you could go to. If you didn't have a whole lot of money, you could pay, if your parents could pay a little bit to go there. And they had some, you know, activities for us to keep us busy, keep us out of trouble. And there was one person that was there in that program. And, you know, they couldn't turn anybody away. It's not like they had to screen anyone. Like, you know, if you could pay the money or get a waiver, you got in. And there was just this one girl who was just disruptive. She would fight anybody. She would just disrupt everything that we would do. I mean, let me tell you, she was like, everybody was scared of her because, like, even the biggest bully went up to her and tried to stop her one day. She just slapped him upside the face. I said, oh. He backed up, and so did everybody else. Apparently, she had a lot going on in her life, and there was a guy that came in to fill in one day. And she was sitting in the corner, kind of brooding, but she had a pen and a pencil, and she was apparently drawing something. I don't know what it was, but she wasn't bothering anybody, so we were happy. And so the instructor, the camp leader, started walking over to her, and I'm thinking to myself, please don't go over here. Don't wake the bear. Leave her alone. She's not bothering anyone or anything like that. Please, we're having a good time today. But apparently he just looked over her shoulder and said, that's really nice. You're doing a good job drawing whatever she was drawing. And apparently that made her really happy. You know, I thought that was something else because after that, she was just different. Simply because someone had given her some recognition, someone had given her some compassion, had not created a sense of separation that she was a bad person. And apparently, as I learned later, she had a lot of stuff going on in her life and obviously was acting up in a way that we didn't understand. I didn't understand. I was just amazed, though, that that person had the presence of mind to approach her differently. You know, we take those words from that St. Francis prayer, grant that I may not seek to be consoled as to console. And realize that it strengthens and ennobles the human nature. It positively impacts the giver as well as the receiver when we can take that perspective and we break down the seeming barriers between us and others. You know, I just want to close out with a story that I recall about two men. They were very ill. And they ended up in the same hospital room. And one man was able to sit up in his bed, and for an hour every afternoon, people would come by and they'd have to drain his lungs for some fluids or something like that. And his bed was the only bed that was next to a window. And the other man had spent all of his time flat on his back, but they talked with each other every day. And they talked about their wives, their families, their jobs, when they had been in the military and their vacations. And every afternoon when the man in the bed by the window would sit up, he'd look out the window and describe to his roommate, the one who couldn't get up or was laying flat, all the things that he could see outside of the window. And so the man on the other bed began to live for those 1 hour periods every day, where his world would somehow be broadened. He would somehow be enlivened by all the activity that was being described by his roommate. And that window overlooked a park and had a lake there. And the person describing it would talk about how the ducks and the swans were, you know, playing in the water, and how children would be sailing their model boats in the lake, and, you know, how young people would be walking arm in arm, and, He was talking about all the different colors of the flowers that were there, and he had a great view of the city from that perspective. And the man by the window would always describe this in exquisite detail. And the man on the other side of the room would simply close his eyes, and he'd imagine that very picturesque scene that was being described to him by his roommate. And one day, the man by the window was describing a parade that was passing by. And although the other man couldn't hear the band, he could see it and sense it in his mind's eye. He could feel it within his cells of his body as the man portrayed the parade in his words. You know, after a while, some days and weeks went by, and one morning the nurse came by and to bring water for their baths, and found the man who was next to the window had passed away peacefully the night before. You know, she was saddened as well as the other people, and they called the attendants to remove his remains. And as soon as the man who had been away from the window thought it was appropriate, he asked, well, can you move me to the window? Move me to the window. And the nurse was very happy to switch beds for him to make sure that he was comfortable, and she left him alone. And then slowly and painfully, he simply propped himself up. First on one elbow and then on the other elbow, and he strained with all of his might so he could look out the window. And then when he got to the level where the window was, the only thing that was there was a blank wall. And the man was just confused because he asked the nurse, what could have compelled the man who just passed to make descriptions of such wonderful things outside of the window? And the nurse simply responded that the man was blind and he could not even see. And she said, maybe he was doing it because he just wanted to encourage you. Eknal H. Warren notes that if in the midst of our own troubles, we can go to a grieving neighbor or somehow another person and offer our help, we find that we not only lift up their spirits, but we lift up our spirits as well. There's tremendous happiness in making others happy, despite our own situations. And it's been said that shared grief is half the sorrow, but happiness shared is doubled. Maya Angelou said something to the effect that people will forget what you say. They may forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. We take those words from Francis Assisi today. Grant that I so much not seek to be consoled as to console. And we know that everyone is lifted up. Peace and blessings to you. And just a reminder that my good friend, Reverend Lee, and his wife, Reverend Lisa Lee, will be here next weekend. And they're going to bring you a bunch of wisdom and transformational information. And so be sure to register for their workshop today for, oh yeah, the choir's here next week? Oh, right, and choir week next week, so you don't want to miss that. Open up a new season, absolutely. And so as we prepare for our gifts and offerings, just know that we're getting the flow of a principle that is unalterable. That whatever we give out, it begins to come back to us. It may come back to us in ways we never imagined and from sources we never thought of. But regardless, we know that we can never outgive this presence that we call God because it's beyond human understanding. And so we support this community who are being people who are coming here for transformation and transforming our own lives. So with that awareness, let us say our offertory blessing together and really take it in. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, and all that I circulate. Thank you, God.
Are you alone? Does it feel like the rain's falling down? Could you hold on if you knew that love was all around you? Believe it or not, you've got friends. Someone is praying for you. Someone is praying for you. Be comforted. Be comforted. Someone is praying for you. Someone is knowing the truth for you. Be comforted in love. Open your eyes, look around. It's been here all along. Don't be surprised when you find that love has made you stronger. Now that you know there's so much. Someone is praying for you. Someone is praying for you. Be comforted. Be comforted. Someone is praying for you. Someone is knowing the truth for you. Be comforted in love. Someone is praying for you. Someone is praying for you. Be comforted. Oh, be comforted. Someone is praying for you. Someone is knowing the truth for you. Be comforted in love. Be comforted in
Comforted in love. Someone is praying for you. Well, we affirm in this prayer that we bless the tithes and offerings. No, they're going to bless the givers and receivers, this community, and ultimately our world. Because whenever one is lifted up, we all are. Because we're all connected on that soul level. Thank you, God. Amen. And with that, let us join together and sing our peace song.